All right. Sounds like we are up and running. Shabbat Shalom, everybody, on this wonderful Shabbat. We left off, we had just started verse last week, did not work out so well. Equipment failure everywhere. So I went on a rant and had to shut it down because nobody could hear it. Oh, well, probably best. So we started on 17. I want to recap 16 a little bit because it is part of 17. And then I'm going to go over 17 again because it's been a while. I mean, if you're just happen onto the site and you go 16 to 17, one right after the other, it's going to seem like, oh, wait, was he saying all this again? For those of us that had to wait a couple of weeks, this is why. So 16, my translation was, you shall not participate in spreading slander with your people, nor shall you defend the guilt of others. And then, of course, this is God talking. So he ended the sentence with, I am Yahweh. In other words, on this authority, the King of the universe, creator of all that is, he's saying, don't do this. And remember, this is what I'm calling the Holiness chapter. This is the chapter in the Hebrew Bible that tells us how to live a holy life. It's a summation. It's not a greatly detailed explanation. It is a summation. And in this point, it's saying you do not, you cannot participate in the spreading of slander with your people. Which, well, does that mean you can participate with slander with the other people? No, it doesn't work that way. If you can't do it with your people, you can't do it with other people. That's how Hebrew actually works. Biblical Hebrew. Modern Hebrew, not so much. But it said, you shall not walk in spreading slander, quite literally, but that's idiomatically, it should be understood as you shall not participate. In the slander, it's gossip. That's what we're talking about. You're going around, you're giving your comments on YouTube. Who's the latest guy I saw yesterday? Steven Crowder. That's Steven Crowder. He's an awful guy. He's over there yelling, screaming, cussing at his wife. And you're going to find out that wasn't what that video looked like. It was a heavily edited video in the first place. You don't see what started that argument. You don't hear anything she said prior to that moment in that video. And Steven Crowder is quite willing to let it all be seen. Probably his wife, not so much. I'm just saying, just throwing that out there. Whether I'm right about that or not doesn't matter. But when you're sitting around, oh yeah, he's an awful person. That's what you're doing. Okay, he's not a Jew, so we can say it about him. Okay, so how about the latest thing on? I got the images of all these Jews in my head, and I can't think of one of their names. Levin, the guy that talks on Fox and stuff like that, he's a Jew. Oh, well, he likes Trump, so we hate him. Slander, gossip. It doesn't matter. You can't be involved in that. That makes you unclean. That makes you impure. That's like I was saying in the earlier thing that we do here in this synagogue that the people on YouTube don't know about. You can't participate in it anyway. But I was, telling them that there was a time when some people cut in line in front of me. I thought they were going to walk past me, so I stepped back to let them get through the row, and then they just walked right in where I had been standing. But I was kind of out into the row halfway because there was so many people in there. And so I stepped back thinking I was going to give them more room. And then they walked in front of me and got mad when I had to walk past them so that I could check out with my wife, who was already in front of them. And then I blew my top, right? There goes your light on the hill thing. There goes the light of God showing through us. There goes the love of God in us. It's all gone in that moment. We're not supposed to do that. That impedes our holiness. And this is what this is talking about. Nor shall you defend the guilt of others. There is a talk show host who said something. I don't remember what it was now, but it was very controversial and it was very wrong. What he said was not correct, and what he said was mean spirited, and it hurt somebody. So instead of getting in front of the camera after he got called on the carpet over it, because he's a big name, he's famous, and he's a conservative, and the people on the left just went ballistic. Well, he'd given them reason to, just like I gave him reason to think very badly of me in that store that day. I felt justified because they had cut in front of me, but they felt justified because I don't know, because they were ahead of me. they didn't notice that I was trying to give them room to pass. But anyway, this guy, instead of getting on his show the next day and saying, everybody's right, I should not have said it, I apologize, which would have endeared him to his audience because he has a great audience. Instead, he got his two, what I would call lapdogs, to sit there and defend the indefensible for over an hour. I finally turned, I don't even watch the guy. I paid for his show. He very much upset me one day, and I tried to cancel my subscription. I'd only had it for about a month and a half at the time, and they kept I paid a year in advance. They kept all of that money and said, well, okay, well, when your year's up, you'll be off the thing. Wow. Okay. So he will not ever get my business again. And I don't think he even knew they did that. He's got somebody hired out that does that. And I don't think he knows they do it, but I won't go back. But anyway, he got his lapdogs to make these lame excuses and try to make it look like he was right. They were defending his guilt. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. When like what the media is doing with the Hunter laptop thing. They were defending the guilt of somebody. They all knew that laptop was real, and they went off. The social media companies wouldn't let you talk about it. The government and the media hid it, told everybody it wasn't real. It was Russia disinformation, blah, blah, blah. They were defending that man's guilt because they thought it would hurt Biden's chances as president, which I don't honestly think it would have, but they were afraid of that. So they defended his guilt. You cannot be pure doing something like that. You are not pure. You are not a good person. You're a bald-faced liar if you do that kind of stuff. Let's not do that. That is not conducive to a life of purity. And I'm not saying that the Republicans haven't done the same thing. That was just an example that I could think of. So we should not be a part of that. All right. Let me move on to 17. Now, the very literal English translation, I do mean very literal translation in English, is not you shall hate brother you, in heart you, confront you shall confront, neighbor you, and not shall bear up upon him sin. This one is so important. We went through the words last time. I'll just quickly go over them. Tisana is the second word. Lo is the first word. So it's lo tisana. The t sound in T, T part of sana, because it's the word is asa. No, it's not. It's sena. That's the word for hate. It's of revulsion. It's of disgust. It's of dislike. That's not quite as hardcore, right? It's of distaste, nausea, horror, loathing, whether of persons or things, a hater, an enemy. It's all of that kind of stuff, but it's also that person did me wrong, and I'm never going to talk to that person again. That person did me wrong. I'm never going to be around that person again. You know, like what's going on with the whole left right thing. They've got America completely divided against itself. And it's like the people are too stupid to realize the problem is the government, not your neighbor. Right. And so somebody says, well, I'm for Trump, and everybody who's not for Trump will never even talk to him again. And we're talking families are doing this, you know, brothers not talking to brothers, sisters not talking to sisters, children not talking to their parents because one said, you know, Trump, when he was in, everybody and gas was cheap and food was cheap. And that's true. He was behind all of that. America was growing at what, 1% at best the whole time Obama was there. And Trump walked in and we were up to 4% growth. Holy smokes. Did anyone, everybody missed that because all of that other, you know, slander and stuff was going on. The made up Russia that's totally made up. And there are people out there that don't know that was made up because the media is still lying to them about it. But that's, you know, they divided people against themselves. That's what this word is talking about. There's this division caused because of whatever. Well, that person said something nasty to my spouse and I'll never talk to that person again. Well, now remember, we're talking about fellow Jews here. And God is essentially saying that's sin. That makes you impure, I should say. Then it says et achicha. And so that's your brother. And you do realize that Hebrew is written in the masculine. So yeah, that's your sister as well. Well, they don't live by Torah like I do. It doesn't make any difference. You don't get to evaluate the depth of somebody's Torah observance. Now, if they're showing no Torah observance at all, that's different. Because there's a lot of people just in the synagogue, we have the same issue that Christians do. You got people going around saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a Jew and I'm Torah observant." They'll even say, and they're not. They don't pay their tithe. They don't wear the fringe. They don't, you know, show up to Shabbat to the Shabbat service on Shabbat. They don't show up to they don't participate in the feasts of God. They're not the feasts of the Jews. They're the feasts of God, and you are not allowed to not participate. They don't give their offerings when they do show up. You know, there's nothing about their life because that's what you call the fruit of the spirit being the Torah. And so if you're doing the things that the Torah says that you're supposed to do, that's called the fruit of the spirit. It's all throughout the Jewish Bible. I'm not talking New Testament here. So you know, you need to recognize that. You need to recognize when somebody literally is not living according to the Torah and running around telling everybody how Torah observant they are. Oh yeah, this is my passion in life. Really? How come you don't live any of it? So that's pretty bad. But so you got somebody who, okay, they wear the fringe and maybe they don't cut their beard or something, and that's all. Not much else, you know. Maybe they show up only on, you know, on to the synagogue like twice a year or something like that. That's still Torah observance. I would consider that a very low level, but that still makes them our brother or our sister. So we can't judge that part. We need to recognize that part because we don't need to have somebody that is barely living out any kind of Torah observance to be our rabbi. Don't ever let that happen. If your rabbi is not living according to what he teaches, get out. Get out now. If you're in a synagogue that's nothing more than a social club, shame on you. And boy, that'll give me some hate mail. So anyway, This is against the brother or the sister. It's not just. And this says in your heart. So this is of the idea of carrying something. This is the idea of something staying in this heart for a long time. This is the idea of not letting it go. Every time you see this person, you get upset. And so you don't go to synagogue because I'm going to get really mad if I see that person, especially if that person says something to me or my spouse, depending on what happened. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up here. Because the heart is the seat of your affections and your emotions and your mind. And in Hebrew, that's all one thing. Your mind, if your mind says yes and your heart says no, you're suffering from schizophrenia, biblically speaking. Because your heart, your mind, and all that is the same thing. And so this is of this carrying, it's carrying a grudge, which I do believe is our next verse, or maybe this is the verse. I don't really know. I'll have to see when we get to the end of it, because I can't remember the whole thing off the top of my head here. But then here's the important part. It says, ho che'ak. That's to confront. Now, yeah, confronting somebody can be anger driven. Well, now this is a brother. We're not supposed to show our anger toward our brothers, right? You remember that? That's the law. So it's not supposed to be an anger driven confrontation. And if you can't confront somebody, when something's fresh, it just happened, maybe you shouldn't confront them that moment. And maybe you have to, but you're going to have to really check that heart if you have to do it right then. If you have to put it off, don't put it off more than a day or two. If this goes on for years and years, wow, what's that say about you? I don't know, but you might want to ask if you've been carrying something for years. But it's to be in front of somebody. That's the image behind it. In other words, you got to face this person who has wronged you. And it's got to be something wronged according to the Torah. It can't be they like Trump and you don't. Sorry, that's not it's not that's not the right thing. Well, I don't know if it's getting in your heart and you're avoiding this person and they're a brother or a sister, then yeah, I guess that is kind of right along the right lines here. But it's of the idea of clearing the air. It's you're dealing directly with someone, and it does say reprove and rebuke. And if you're going to reprove or rebuke, you need to know what the law says before you can do something like that. So if you don't know what the law says, maybe you ought to stay off of that part and just say, listen, you said or did something that has really hurt me. And the person on the other side, you don't say, well, you just need to grow some thicker skin and grow up. No, because that's you doing the same exact thing back towards somebody. When it's a brother or a sister, this needs to be a back and forth. It needs to be done in love, because that's how people know that we are disciples of God, that we're followers and imitators of God, is through our love one to another. That no one's going to get that if we're standing there in the hallway or in the foyer screaming at the top of our lungs. Which, growing up in a Pentecostal church, I saw people do that quite often, and there were times when they took it out into the parking lot and beat the snot out of each other. I've never seen that in the synagogue, but as you know, I went to churches as a kid and into my early 20s, and then that was the end of that. But yeah, that's not the right approach. So when we're talking reprove and rebuke, don't take the negative side of that. Every Hebrew word has the positive and the negative. The positive is what the word means in general, and the negative is to pervert the positive. That's how Hebrew of the Bible always works. It's of trying to convince somebody. And then that's followed by, let's see if that's the same word, because I don't remember what it was. Yeah, it's the same word. So what happens when you say the same word 2 times in a row? God's putting an exclamation point on the end of this particular part of this sentence. So we only do that at the end of a full sentence in English, but in Hebrew it can be right at the beginning, middle, it can be anywhere in the sentence, and it's not to make the whole sentence more important, it's to make that one point in the sentence more important. And that's what's happened here. This is how important this is. God is saying it twice, and this is God speaking. You know, I mean, somebody else wrote it down, but they're writing down what God spoke, right? Moshe, sure. So then that's followed by Amitecha, people, your people. They always say neighbor in English, but it's your people. So if you're part of say this congregation, I think that there are people in this congregation that like my wife and I are born Jewish, right? And we have lived a Jewish life more than half of our lives. So we've lived as Jews, going to synagogue and all that stuff, living the Jewish life longer than we ever did Christianity. That it was more short-lived for me than it was my wife, but we've done this much longer at this point, I do believe. It's got to be getting close, if not surpassed it. But this is of your people. The root word here being which is people, and then it ends in cha, which is your people. So if you're part of this congregation, we are your people, no matter who it is. So boy, if you got something going on with somebody in this congregation, that's real important that you need to, let's say, clear the air. You need to get face to face with that person and try to find some way for the two of you to find peace. Now, if you're on the other side of this and you know good and well what you did was wrong, maybe you should try to initiate it. Because this is actually talking about the person who's been victimized. But it works both ways. So if you know that you've done wrong, it wouldn't hurt for you to try to contact that person you have wronged, admit that you've done. Don't give that one of those political non-apology apologies. Don't say, if I hurt you. Don't ever say that to a brother. If you're talking to them, then you know you hurt them. And so you say, I realize what I did hurt you. I was wrong. I should never have done it. I am so sorry. That would be a really good thing. If the person who has initiated that has done that wrong, does not initiate that conversation, then it's up to you, because that's what the law says. It's up to you, the victim. Because oftentimes both sides feel like they've been victimized. You know what I'm saying? And other times, and that generally is from somebody just not having a realistic estimation of their own self when they're actually the person who hurt somebody. Sometimes they just don't have a realistic estimation of themselves, like that television guy who got on there and got his little lap dogs to defend the indefensible. It's a shame, because he's a pretty good guy. Normally he's a pretty good guy. He just should never have done it. He should have just said, yes, what I did was wrong. It's always better. But then there's more to this. See, we've gotten through that part of, hey, you've got to face this person and you've got to try to clear the air, literally, is what all of that's going to mean. Because, we put it all together and realize there's a little bit of idiomatic speaking here. So it will be clear the air. But then it says tisa from asa. So you don't lift up, you don't take up, you don't bear up. And what is it that you don't do that to? Let's get on to the next word. Alav, upon. You don't bear up upon. You don't lay something on somebody, because you'd have to pick it up to lay it on them. Chet. You don't lay on them the sin. And what it's saying, let me see what the next, yeah, okay, that is the last word. What it's trying to tell you is that somebody has wronged you. Now you're facing that person. You're trying to clear the air. You're trying to find a way that you guys can get along. This does not mean that you have to be best buds and hug and kiss every time you see each other on Shabbat. That's not what that means. But this is the opportunity for the victim to forgive, and for the perpetrator, if you will, the assailant, the bad guy, to ask for forgiveness. But you've gotten together, you cleared the air, and you got in the car and drove away. And the first thing you said to your spouse is, that person is, oh, I'm never going to talk to that person again. Now you've got the problem. Now you're the perpetrator. Now you're the bad guy. Follow what I'm saying? That's what not holding up the sin on the other person means. You're not supposed to hold this thing that they did to you over them. That's the whole point of clearing the air. Well, not the whole point, but that's the other half of the point. Let me put it that way. So we're to the point where I can give the translation. You shall not hate, and in square brackets, hey, won't you hit the button number 4? Button 4 is not there. No, you got 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the little wacky do. Yeah, that's what I meant. Mom and pop all the way. Okay, vaYiqra 19:17. You hate your. See, the letters are written in little cursive looking things, and they're in the words weren't there, but this is implied. You shall not hate your Torah brother, because they can't be your brother. If you're Torah observant and they're not, they are not your brother. And they are heavy. Don't try to pick them up. Anyway, your servant brother in your heart. You can't hold on to this stuff in your heart. You have to let it go. The idea of forgiveness so that somebody gets away with something. God is not mocked. Person who has done you wrong will reap from that which they have sown. The whole purpose of forgiveness is for you, the victim. It helps you to let go of the past and not hang on to that past so that you can be free again. It's for the victim. It's not for the perpetrator. Anyway, you shall absolutely confront. Remember, this word is in there twice. So we have to do some kind of make that indication. You shall absolutely confront, because it says confront, you shall confront, quite literally. All words are not English. You shall absolutely confront your neighbor. In other words, you have to. You can't get away with this. Well, but I've had this squabble going on with my neighbor for 25 years. Well, okay, well, this is the first time you're hearing it. Now it's your problem. Doesn't matter what happened 25 years with your neighbor, because I kind of have I don't exactly have a squabble with my neighbor. We've lived here like, I think, 11 years. The most hateful, gnarly little man. And I don't know if I should say it that way. A small guy. That's not what I mean by that. Just petty, just real petty. Every time he talks to me, he's threatening to sue me over something. It's always something he did. So nothing to do with what I've done. I'm not in a battle with him, but he seems to be in a battle with me. And I have tried to make that thing go away. And this is nothing I seem, but he's not a brother either. But let's say he was. Let's say he's over there, and boy, we just can't get along. Sometimes you can't fix it, but you have to face it. I faced that man. He's not even Jewish. He's certainly not Torah observant. He don't go to church. I mean, he's not religious at all. But I did this thing with him and it got me nowhere. But if your sisters, You you have to confront that person. You have to go face to face with that person in love. You have to let them know how you feel and what you feel was wrong. And other person, it's not your job to say, "Oh, that's not the way you should feel," or "You're not right about that." No, this person is telling you how they feel about it. They're telling you what you did, your actions. They're telling you what your actions did to them, and you need to hear that. Oh, I'm in trouble. Give me a minute. I'm sorry. Oh, I've got this thing that happens to me, and it's very painful. Um, you'll absolutely confront this person. You'll absolutely have to person with this issue. Your neighbor, of course, says is who the person is, and you shall not hold his or her or his sin over him or her. Once you've had this conversation with this person, even if this person totally refuses to hear what you person totally refuses to accept culpability, that's really not the right word because that sounds like you're both guilty. Literally, that's what culpability means. What word am I looking for here, Donna? If they refuse to accept responsibility in this thing, then you've obeyed this law, you've done what you can do, and then you got to make sure you don't hold it over them. You got to let it go in your heart. And then that freedom, you're going to feel freedom from this. Maybe not that moment, but eventually, as you let this thing go from your heart, you're letting go of the bad. It's like the gardener, God being the gardener, is plucking away the bad so that the good can rise up in you. We've got to get a hold of this. I mean, there's no one in our group that I can think of that has that. I don't have it for sure. And I don't think my wife feels that way about me. I hope. Anyway, uh, Haskani, Rashbam, and Sadia all took these words to mean clear the air. That's very good, actually. It is correct. However, the word also comes with the idea of punishment. Though we are not usually going to deal out punishment, that part is, if it's so bad you have to go to your rabbi to be um, the arbiter between it, you need to do that. If this is something really, really contentious, you need to go to your rabbi and let him arbitrate between them. That is, as your rabbi, that is my job. And as much as I will not tell you, I'll be happy to do it. I will obey God and do it, and I will do it with love and all that kind of stuff. But if it's that bad, you need to bring me in on it. If it's worse, you may have to hire a lawyer. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's hope it hasn't gotten that bad, but for some people it is. Because the air has cleaned. So that's the judgment part of it. It's not for you, it's for the arbiter, whether it's your rabbi or a court system. Um, I don't see this verse as negative since we're speaking of neighbors, right? This is all supposed to be on the positive side of things because being neighbors indicates friendship, kinship for sure. So, in the end, we cannot just ignore something that has hurt or injured us in some way with regard to a brother or sister. We must face our brother or sister and clear the air. I didn't mean to spend that much time on that, but I really wanted to cover that because the next one is kind of the same. So, verse 18, this is going to sound really familiar to some of you. Here's the very, 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 very literal English. Not you shall avenge and not maintain anger, children people you, and love you to close friend, you as from he you, I Yahweh. Okay, that one, like that, may not be so clear, but we say this every week, and it is a continuation of the same thought. Not tikon. This is revenge. It's to take vengeance. It's to get back at somebody. It's by gosh, they've done me wrong. That sort of thing. The actual, this particular word is forceful breathing. This is, anger. You know what I'm saying? You're breathing hard because you're really angry. So it's from that idea, but it covers the gamut. It's from your feelings being hurt to you just being furious. It's the whole gamut. It's not just on the end, although it leans more toward the fury side than it does the, I'm hurt. This is velo, and you will not titor. That's to guard, to keep, to hang on to. You will not maintain what? What was the word we just said? Anger. You will not maintain your hurt. You will not maintain this unapproval, this anger, whatever it is, you will not maintain it. You've already been told that you have to clear the air. Now you're being told by doing so, you will not maintain it. You could say it that way. It's really just saying you will not maintain it. But if you put the two together, you can see how I would say by doing so, you will not maintain it. This is et b'nai, that's children. Okay, well, I'll do that with a little kid, but I won't do that with my neighbor. Amecha, the children of your people. Your people, that's your synagogue. Those are your people. Even if you don't know them very well, they're still your people. That's part of your little group. That's what makes you a people. You are a people if, like clans were considered a people because it was literally a family of all related people living in this little town somewhere, if you will, we wouldn't call it that, a village. And the village is all full of completely related people. And they were called a people. And then you live in a city. So if you all live in Austin, then you're all Austinites or something like that. If you all live in Moore, Oklahoma, no. I won't say that because there was a really famous TV producer who actually said that out loud and lost her job. I'm pretty sure you guys know what I didn't say. So anyway, your people. This is ve'ahavta, and you will love. Love. This is actually a word that it's a sound. It's not what we think of as a word. It, that, he, she, those are words. This, from the root, this is actually a sound. It's that is literally how that's pronounced, right? Because it's supposed to be a breathing sound. Well, you older adults should know where that's going, right? That's a very intense love, or at least it should be. But that goes the gamut. It goes from that very intense love to the breathing hard because of the anger, right? That's the perverted part. That's to pervert love, is to hate your neighbor. That's a perverted version of love. Anyway, then it says le reacha. Wow. And then rea, That literally means lover. It gets translated as friend. I've always translated it as close friend because that's actually a, whoa, I'm hitting buttons I shouldn't be. I dropped the mouse and just started crashing on buttons here. Um, this is of friends that are so close that, the one knows the other better than they know themselves. That's the idea. Uh, very close friendship. But it it goes that gamut from the hard breathing, your of being lovers to the that sort of thing has nothing to do with it. You're just very good friends because this word is used of men being they say these men were lovers. It doesn't have anything to do with sex. It's just that these are guys that know each other better than they know themselves. So hopefully you understand that. So it's a close friend, a very close friend. There's a kamocha aniyave. You guys starting to recognize it? So you're going to love your neighbor. Not everybody in this world. You're not going to love some dude in Germany that worships the devil as yourself. No, that's not the idea. You're going to love your neighbor as yourself. Why is that important? Well, because if every group of people would follow these rules just for their group of people, there would be peace in this world. There would be. Because if you can learn to love and respect your own neighbor as yourself, if everybody can do that just with your own neighbor, then we'll learn to do that with everybody else. We'll learn to show respect to everybody. And all of those people will learn to show respect to us. But we need to bring that down to our people, our close friends. And if every group of people would do that, there would definitely be peace in this world. Just saying, just throwing that out there. So here's my translation. You shall not hold a grudge against the children of your people, and you will love your close friend as yourself. I am Yahweh. Do you recognize that? We say it every week. Verse 17 tells us to confront our neighbor or our close friend, our people, and as I said, could leave us the impression that we should argue or even punish them ourselves. You remember that said that it had to be an arbiter and not you. So it kind of leaves, if you're just looking the words up, you might get the idea that, oh, I should punish that person. No, you're not the punisher. Just because the word talks about punishment doesn't mean you get to be the one. However, this verse makes it very clear that our confrontation should be done in love and humility, since we cannot hold a grudge. And that's what both of these verses go together. They are literally the same sentence. Because Hebrew sentences get broken up. I mean, you can have a single sentence that would literally be a page long if you typed it out in Hebrew. And it's a single sentence. In fact, you could write out the entire Hebrew Bible in a single sentence and it would be correct. It would not be a run-on sentence. That is a Western construct that did not exist in the time of the Bible. And so biblical Hebrew is quite different. So that's what we're looking at here. These two sentences very much go together. And you really can't understand the one without the other. So it makes it clear that our confrontation should be done in love and humility, since we cannot hold a grudge. A grudge can work two ways. We can hold a grudge against a person who wronged us, or they can hold a grudge against us because of the way they lashed out, the way we lashed out at them at what they did, right? Or they can hold a grudge. This is the one that I see an awful lot I've seen it an awful lot over the years. Somebody will come and be a part of our synagogue for a while, and then they will actually do or say something that just embarrasses the life out of them. I'm thinking of one guy in particular. He did apologize. He was real surprised that he reacted to something I said while I was teaching in that manner, but we've never seen him again, right? Because he embarrassed himself so bad that he didn't want to come and face his brother. And yet he was commanded, wasn't he, to come because he was the perpetrator. He was the one that needed to come and say, hey, to everybody, because he did it in front of the whole thing. And then he tried to cover his tracks and tried to make it look like I had done some kind of something wrong. None of it made any sense. But and I certainly hadn't done what he was accusing me of, but he was so embarrassed he didn't come back. Well, I can't tell you how many times that's happened. That's just one example in a long line. So again, it works both ways. If you're the victim, you have to face them. If you're the perpetrator, you have to face them. And I cannot stress enough how important it is for you not to give a non-apology apology, for you not to try to cover, well, that's not what I meant by what I said. That's not what I wasn't really being, a human turd. You just took it wrong. I was making a joke, right? Don't. God commanded us to do this. If somebody's come to you and they're trying to do what God commanded them to do, who do you think you're dealing with at that moment? Do you know what I'm saying? That is a direct affront against God Almighty. If you sit there and say, that's not what I meant. I was just kidding. Don't do that. And don't tell that person that, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Oh, you're just taking that way too. They're telling you what you did to them. Whether it was intentional or not does not make a difference. Whether you see it right or wrong doesn't make a difference. If they brought it to you, it's real. Now, if you're a little pansy ass Karen, that ain't the same thing. Get around, I say that. Anyway, we're low on time. Let me try to get to this next one. Verse 19, very little English. Ordinances mine, you shall guard it. Livestock you shall cause to lay as to field you, not you shall see as to, and clothing as to, shahatnez, not he ascended upon you. So there's a Hebrew word that I am going to use for you. This might get a little involved. I don't think we can finish it today, but let's go through some of the words. We'll recap them kind of shortly next week. God willing. We'll see where we go from there. It starts off with at, it's just a pointer. It has no actual meaning. And then you have hu kotai. Those are ordinances. And then the I at the end, it's mine. So again, this is God talking. So he's saying, that which is established both and always of a single law or ordinance. Of heaven, practices and customs. Because we have customs and practices that were given to us by our God. That's what, Pesach and Sukkot, Shavuot, those are our customs and our practices. Wearing the fringe, wearing the talitot, wearing the kippot. Those are parts of our customs and our practices. Now, of course, God's saying his customs and practices, so his kippah, not his. That's man. I wear it because I want to cover them at all times, and I want that because if I'm reading the scriptures or I'm saying God's name or something like that, I want to cover it. Is that God or is that God commanded? No, it's just a custom. All right, so that won't fall under this category. These are the customs, the practices, and the ordinance that come directly from God. So we need to. So weird. Okay, I'll just go ahead and stop there. So,
The blessing, vaYiqra. Yavarecha Yahweh v'yish merecha. Ya'er Yahweh panai v'lecha v'hunecha. Yisa Yahweh panai v'lecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And in English, may Yahweh cause you to lie down so that you may rest. May he touch and caress you. May he prepare you for what is ahead. May he watch over you. May he keep you from harm. May he cause goodness to grow in you and take away the bad. May he arrange your life and cause you to flourish. May he cheer you up and gladden your heart. May he cause his light to shine through you. May he show you tenderness, favor, and love in his presence. May he show you kindness and be delicate towards you. May he show you his generosity, mercy, compassion, and desire for you as it comes forth from the depths of his soul. May he lift you out of your pit and deliver you from the things that hold you prisoner. May he draw you to his chest and cast his eyes on yours. May he show you his love and desire for you as he cradles you in his arms. May he bear your punishment and pardon you of your sin. May he take you for his bride. May he establish a foundation in you. May he place his name on your heart and mind and make your body his temple. May you be his treasure. May you always be on his mind. May he draw you near and comfort you when you are afraid. May he assure you there is nothing to fear because he is with you. May you and all that concerns you be at peace because he is your friend. Amen.